This story is called The Milky Way, and it's just one story that explains how that band of stars that we can often see in the summertime came to be in the sky. Here in Middle Tennessee, we can see the Milky Way as it stretches from south to north across the top of the sky. There are many stories from many lands, but this version is what the Cherokee people told their children to explain this group of stars. Now, the Milky Way is actually part of the galaxy that we are part of here on the Earth. When we look out into the sky and see the Milky Way above us, what we're looking at is one band, one spiral of that galaxy. We live on our Earth here in the middle of one spiral. We look across the great expanse of space and see the next spiral, which we call the Milky Way. Now, the Cherokee lived in East Tennessee and other parts of the Southeast. Now, they didn't live here in Middle Tennessee, but they came through here. They hunted in our forests. They fished in our rivers. They gathered nuts and berries and apples and peaches when they grew ripe. And they would bring all that food home to East Tennessee, where they would cook a delicious meal and everyone would eat, and then the children would be tucked in bed and told a story, just like we tell stories here. This is the story that the Cherokee told to explain what we call the Milky Way. There was once a boy who lived with his grandparents in a lodge in a Cherokee village. Every morning, the grandmother would go out to the big basket of cornmeal. She would take the lid off and reach in and pick up the gourd scoop that was left inside the basket. She would scoop up enough cornmeal to put in the pot that she had brought with her. Then she would put the lid back on the basket, and she would take that pot of cornmeal into the lodge to cook a meal for herself and the grandfather and the boy. Now, this cornmeal had been given out by everyone in the village. Everyone had a basket of cornmeal. This was cornmeal that had been dried and ground up and given out equally to everyone in the village. Everyone helped with everything, especially with growing the corn that was such an important part of their diets. Even the smallest children would help to dig holes in the dirt and prepare the garden plots. They would help to drop the kernels in and cover them up with good rich dirt. Everyone in the village helped to water those seeds as they grew. Soon they would be pulling weeds, and even the youngest children would be sent out to pick off the bugs so that there would be plenty of corn for the people to eat. As the corn ripened through the summer, everyone helped to tend it. At the end of the summer, when it was ripe, they would all harvest the corn. They would have a big celebration where they ate corn roasted just like we do. And they would shuck the ears, and they would put butter and salt and pepper on their corn just like we do. Later, they would collect the rest of the corn, for they didn't eat it all. They saved most of it. And they would dry the corn kernels, and then they would grind it into cornmeal and give out a portion to every family in the village. So this was the basket of cornmeal that the grandmother went to every day. One morning, The grandmother came back inside from getting the morning's cornmeal, and she was very upset. The level in the basket is so much lower this morning. I'm afraid someone has taken some of our cornmeal. That cannot be, said the grandfather. We all own everything. We don't steal from each other. This is terrible. We must find out who is taking the cornmeal, said the boy. I have an idea. Tonight, I will hide in the bushes behind the cornmeal basket, and I will wait, and I will find out who is stealing our cornmeal. So as the long summer day ended and the sun went down, the boy went out behind the lodge, and he waited in the bushes as it got darker and darker. Soon the lightning bugs came out. Blink, 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 blink. And then the mosquitoes came out. They landed on the boy, but when they bit him, he said very quietly, because he didn't want to frighten away whoever was coming to steal the cornmeal. So the mosquitoes buzzed and bit. And the boy stayed hidden and silent behind the bushes, waiting as the night grew darker and later. Deep in the night, the boy saw, coming closer, a silvery glow weaving in and out between the trees, coming closer and closer until it was so close that the boy could see that it was a giant silvery dog, a ghost dog, a spirit dog. It trotted right up to the basket, nosed the lid off, plunged its nose into the basket, and began to eat. The boy could hear it. When it had eaten its fill, it pulled its nose out of the basket, turned around, and trotted back through the trees. The boy quietly returned to his sleeping mat. The next morning, he told his grandparents what he had observed. This is very dangerous, said the grandfather. Yes, said the grandmother, we must speak to the beloved woman. And so later that morning, the grandparents and the boy went to the lodge of the beloved woman. She was the wisest person in the village, and whenever someone had a problem, they would go to speak with her. She sat beside her fire, holding the white swan's wing that was the mark of her office. Welcome, she said as they walked in. Come and sit and tell me your problem. So the boy and his grandparents told her what they had seen. Yes, this is a dangerous spirit dog, said the beloved woman. We must get rid of it in a very special way. We must be very careful. Tonight, said the beloved woman, everyone in the village must gather behind your lodge. They must bring anything that they can make noise with, like a turtle shell rattle or a sour wood drum with a groundhog skin head. They must bring everything they can. And if they don't have instruments, they must bring sticks. They will hide in the darkness until I give the signal. And when I give the signal, everyone will make so much noise that it will frighten away this spirit dog as he comes to steal your cornmeal. Thank you, beloved woman, said the grandparents and the boy, and they went away to tell their neighbors what was going to happen that night. As the sun set everyone in the village gathered behind the boy and grandparents' lodge. They had their turtle shell rattles and their drums. They had sticks and stones and shakers of all kinds. They hid behind the bushes and waited as the darkness grew thicker. Soon the lightning bugs came out. Blink, 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 blink. And then the mosquitoes came out. Zzz, zzz, zzz. They waited quietly for that spirit dog to return. Deep in the night, far in the distance through the trees, they could see that silvery light weaving closer and closer. Now that great spirit dog trotted right up to the basket, flipped the lid off with its long nose, and began to eat the delicious cornmeal. The beloved woman said, "Get ready." Now! And all of the people began to shake their rattles and beat on their drums. The dog was so frightened that he pulled his nose out of the basket, ow, and turned and ran away from all those noisy people. He ran back through the trees with the people chasing him, shaking their rattles and beating their drums. They chased him to the very edge of the forest, and the dog was so frightened by the noise that he jumped into the sky and kept running away. Now, as he had a mouthful of cornmeal in his mouth, as he ran across the sky, the cornmeal trailed out of his mouth, leaving a great thick white streak in the sky. And that is what the Cherokee people call where the dog ran. We call it the Milky Way.